Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out here in the shop, and I want to talk to you about a really unique rig system that I used in a recent Going Ike episode. I fished on the upper Mississippi River, north of Twin Cities, and fished during a time of the year when smallmouth were eating a lot of bait that was dying. They were eating suckers and little chub and some river shiners. And it's a really interesting technique because I never thought about this technique from the perspective of matching the hatch. Let me explain to you a little what happened, and then I'm going to show you this really unique rig called a tumble rig or a tumbler rig. In that particular river, what was happening is there was natural bait that was dying because of the cold conditions. Again, suckers, chubs, little tiny river minnows. But also, there were a ton of live bait fishermen that were fishing the river. And when they would miss a fish or have a fish on and their sucker or their little chub would fall off, the bait that was half dead would just sort of roll down the river. Really blew me away because we get so locked into making the bait swim naturally, like the bait is alive. But when forage is dying or live bait fishermen are around, and that bait, especially in current situations, right? Rivers, streams, lakes that have a little bit of current, wind-driven current, a lot of times that bait just tumbles down the water column or tumbles down the river bottom. And until we switched to this tumbler technique, we were just catching little ones. The minute we switched to this, we started matching the hatch and catching really, really big fish. But let me explain this rig to you. It's called a tumble rig. You can use it with two different style baits. You can use it with soft minnow or fluke style baits, and you can use it like we did in the Going Ike video with smaller finesse style swim baits. My favorite two are Berkeley Power Bait. That's the Power Jerk Shad. And then I'm in love with this new swim bait called a Power Swimmer. And this is the smaller 3.8 size. And remember, we don't want these baits to run beautifully like they're alive, right? We don't want to do the normal jig head or the normal Texas rig to make it look like it's alive and trying to get away. We want to make these baits look like they're dying and just tumbling down, tumbling along the bottom. And to use this system to get the bait to make that tumble, we can do it two different ways. The first way is just using traditional, just regular straight shank style hook. I really, really like the VMC Nico hook, the 1 or the 1/0 or 2/0, depending on the size of the bait. And then we're going to get our bait. I'll show you the soft jerk bait first. And we're just going to get the hook and we're going to thread it on there, right? We're just going to get that finesse Nico. I'm going to push it up about to the middle of that little middle of the body. And we want to just thread that hook on there. And the nice thing about the finesse Nico is that it has a keeper barb on it that will hold that bait on there and keep it from sliding around. When I use the traditional straight shank hook like the Nico hook, the only other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a barrel swivel. That's just a small little what I call medium-sized two-way or barrel swivel. And I like to use a braid to fluorocarbon leader. It's a real good combination. Braid to a fluor leader, anywhere from 8 to 14 inches. And when I make that cast out there, I'm really going to let this bait dead stick and almost let it drift down naturally. If there's current in a river or stream, I cast upstream. I let the bait work down. If I'm in a lake or a reservoir, I cast it out, let it sink all the way to the bottom, and I sweep my rod to the side, let it fall, sweep to the side. And all this bait is doing, it looks incredibly strange, but it's literally tumbling. It's almost twisting and turning as it falls. Think about it. Exactly what a dying sucker or shad or shiner would look like if it was dying and tumbling to the bottom. But the other system, and this is the one I really love, is using finesse style swim bait and a really specialized hook that VMC makes. If you look at this, this is, if you're a walleye angler, you're going to know this hook. If you're a bass angler, you're not going to know it. This is a hook by VMC called a spin drift hook. And if you look at this hook, it's very unique because the hook has sort of a crook in it. The hook has sort of got a bend in it. And then at the top of that hook is a built-in swivel, okay? So when you're using the VMC spin drift on this style technique, there's no need for the barrel swivel because the swivel's built into the hook. Once again, all we're going to do with that finesse swim bait is we're going to thread it on that hook. And I like to try to get about halfway down the body. It's going to go straight into that bait. I'm going to go about halfway down the body, pull it out. And when you finally pull that to that swivel, you're going to see that we just have a swim bait that has a hook. Just thread it through it. Once again, I'm going to cast it out upstream if I'm in current, and I'm going to let this thing tumble and spin and drift as it goes downstream. In deep water, reservoirs, lakes, ponds, I'm going to cast it out. I'm going to let it fall on a slack line. As it's falling, it's just tumbling down to the bottom. Once it gets to the bottom, I'm going to use my rod, sweep it to the side, follow the slack, let it tumble back down. This rig, it breaks everything we've learned about fishing, about perfect action, about natural swimming motion, and it makes this bait look like it's dying or dead forage. And you know what that means? That means an easy meal for the fish. Try this one. Man, it blew me away. Add this to your arsenal. And in those conditions where you're fishing around dying bait for whatever reason, try that tumble rig, the tumbler technique. Man, I guarantee you're going to catch a lot of big fish, just like we did in the Going Ike episode. Mike Iaconelli talking about the tumbler rig out in the shop.